What's up, everybody, and thank you for listening to Mastering the Mindset. My name is Dariusdotch, and I'm an actor, hip-hop artist, and fitness and life coach. And I'm here to personally help you train and improve your mindset so that you can, 1, become the best version of yourself mentally, and 2, gain focus and motivation to be able to take action and achieve the success in life that you want and deserve. Before we get started, please like and subscribe to my channel, and at the end of this episode, if you liked it, please share it with a friend or a loved one or someone who would benefit from hearing this message. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm ready to go on this journey with you, and that journey begins now. All right, and welcome back to another episode today. First of all, I'm glad you're here. I think it's a very important one. I'm going to talk about 3 evidence-based strategies to help you overcome your anxiety, how to overcome your anxious thoughts, how to help you. And again, I think this is important. And I was looking up this topic in the Journal of Anxiety Disorder, and they found that anxiety has gone up by 300% since pre-pandemic. And anxiety is common. It's natural. It's just a natural human response to stress and uncertainty, and also a response to perceived threats, which we're going to dive into a little bit more today. The things we perceive as threats coming up. And I'm not talking about right now. It's usually in the future, right? And anxiety actually can be a good thing. Yeah, it can. It's our brain projecting into the future, preparing us for potential threats. That can be useful and at the basic levels of survival, like crossing a highway, for example. You know that feeling you get when you have to cross a highway or a real busy street with fast moving traffic? You should have some kind of anxiety, like, okay, this traffic is going fast as hell. Let me cross as fast as I can so I don't get hit. And that's normal to have that preparation for what might be coming down the line. But if you're waking up every day and you feel stress and you feel anxiety, and if it's a thing where it's lasting a long time, when it becomes chronic like that, it can interfere with life. And we need to learn how to address it and not just say, okay, do better. Don't be anxious all the time, right? But to have some actual psychological strategies. And today we're going to go over a few of those. But first, let's talk about what anxiety is. Because if we can understand it and it pops up and we find ourselves in the state of anxiety, then we can find a way to get ourselves out of it. So the definition of anxiety is a feeling of unease, such as worry or fear, that can range from mild to severe. And it's an essential human emotion that serves as an adaptive response to danger or challenges. And anxiety can pop up in a few different ways. It can pop up as an emotional symptom, which can be worry, fear, irritability, difficulty in concentration, restlessness, for example, when you're trying to fall asleep. So those can be the emotional side of it. And there's also the physical symptoms as well. The thing about anxiety is you can feel it in your body, right? It can be muscle tension, headaches. It can be trembling. It can be increased heart rate, shortness of breath. And I didn't know about this one, but it can also affect your digestive system. So I'm going to dive into 3 strategies to help you. And the first one is the easiest. And I think it's the first one you should go to whenever you have that awareness that, hey, okay, there it is. I'm feeling anxious. The first one is deep breathing. And the reason why this one is important to go over first is because the other 2 we're going to talk about, those are strategies for your brain, for what to think. And when you're in an anxious state, as you know, it's difficult to process through the brain as easily. When you're anxious, that executive decision process of your brain turns off. So if you get the feeling of being anxious, you need to start to calm yourself down. And the fastest way to do that is to control your breathing. Once you control that, it'll be easier to get your brain to catch up or slow down. Deep breathing exercises help activate your body's relaxation response, and it reduces anxiety levels. And when you think about taking a deep breath, like if you took one right now, what a lot of people do when you tell them to take a deep breath is they go and they raise their shoulders up when they inhale. And that's actually not the best way to do it. It's not a good breath from the diaphragm, a diaphragmic breath. Had to spell check that because, yeah. Anyway, but your stomach is where you want to breathe. So when you take a deep breath, you want those shoulders to actually stay down, and you want the gut to expand through your diaphragm. And one of the easiest ones to do is the 5 seconds in, 10 seconds out. 5 in, 10 out. The out breath needs to be longer than the in because when you breathe out for a longer time, it helps slow the heart rate down. And of course, if you lower your heart rate, it lowers your stress level. So that's the first thing. A really important one, deep breaths. 5 in, 10 out. Do at least 6. So now that we did the breathing, we go to number 2, which is called cognitive restructuring. And what that involves is identifying those negative thought patterns, the thoughts that contribute to your anxiety. And this is something that they do in cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's definitely a proven practice. And there's basically 3 parts to this strategy, to cognitive restructuring. And the first part is to identify that negative thought, become aware of it. Which thoughts are the thoughts that's fueling this anxiety? And we have a lot of those thoughts, right? When we don't even try, or it's kind of second nature to have a negative thought about something and not even be conscious of it. And what happens is we don't notice a thought, but we do notice how we feel. And most of the time, we're not even aware of how we ended up there. We just feel the negative feelings, and we have to do a rewind and realize what thoughts made us feel this way. The communication between our brains and our bodies is constant, right? The brain has a thought, whatever that thought may be, and it sends a signal to your body. And depending on the thought, it's going to release dopamine, which is the feel-good chemical, or cortisol, which is adrenaline, which is going to make us feel anxious. It's going to make you tighten up. It's going to make you feel flight or fight. Fight, flight, or freeze, actually. I just learned about that third one, the freeze, which makes a lot of sense. Anyway, when we notice the feelings, we have to take a step back and assess what's going on. What thoughts got me here? What was I just thinking? Because we never notice a thought as we're thinking it. It's always after. We feel it in our chest, our heart rate goes up, or we feel nervous or anxious, right? So identify that thought, and now we can start to work through it. So that's the second thing, identify the thought. What's up, what's up, what's up? I want to take a quick moment to say thank you so much for listening to this episode, and to also let you know that this podcast is 100% donation driven, which means it's completely funded by you, the listener. So if you like the content I have to offer, I would love it if you can make a donation and you get to pick the amount. I left links in the description of the video as well as my homepage. You can choose which way benefits you the best to donate. And if you need more options, please feel free to email me at dariusdotch@gmail.com. That's dariusdotch@gmail.com. Again, thank you so much for being here, and let's get back to it. So identify that thought. And the third thing we have to do is evaluate the accuracy and the rationality of that thought, which is extremely important. And this is something that I'm getting better at myself. What other outcomes are more likely to happen than that absolute worst case scenario? Because we go there mentally, right? We think of that absolute failure, of how terribly wrong it can go. Or what else we do is, even if we might not have the visual thought, that feeling is still there. The fear of failure, that anxiety and pressure of not wanting to experience that worst case scenario. And let me tell you, that's what get me the most. I'll think about something and my gut and my chest just drop. It just drops, and I get worried that something is going to be bad, that I won't finish. And I don't actually always think that thought or visualize that thought, but still the feeling tied to not wanting it to happen, it still hits me, if that makes sense. And what we got to do is challenge the validity of that thought, of that feeling. What are the things that could actually happen? And if you've been listening to this podcast, then you know exactly where I'm about to go with this. Psychologists have found that 85% of the things we worry about don't actually come true. 85%. So whatever that worst case scenario you thinking about or feeling, more than likely, it won't even come true. So we can challenge that thought and say, you know what? More than likely, it won't even be this bad. It probably won't even happen. And also, of that remaining 15%, the slim chance that it does come true, only 3% of it happens the way we see it in our head. Only 3%. So that means that 97% of the things you see as worst case scenario, the things you see playing out in your head, the way you see them, 97% of the time it never happens. 97% of the time, it never happens. 97% of the things you worry about or feel anxious about turn out better than the way you see them in your head. And if that's the case, what if instead of feeling anxious about it, after we identify what that thought is, let's say you give a presentation on Monday in front of a bunch of people, or you have a big project coming up and you don't know how you'll be able to execute it. Or maybe you're worried and questioning, what if I get fired? What if I fail? What if my friends look at me like I'm stupid? What if you at least try to think of something different? What if you acknowledge that, hey, this negative thought, guess what? The fact that I'm even having this thought, the odds show me that it most likely won't even come true. So what if you try to change it? What if you challenge it? So like I said, evaluate it, evaluate the validity of it, the rationale of it, and try to replace it with a more realistic thought, one that ain't the worst case scenario, one that's positive. Like, okay, I have this presentation. Okay, all I got to do is prepare. I don't like speaking in front of a bunch of people, but it could turn out to be better than what I think it will. Yes. Instead of failing and falling flat on my face and looking like an idiot in front of my peers, what if I show up, do it scared, and it turns out good? What if I decided to work on it and make it the best I can? You replace that thought, that negative thought, with a more positive thought, one that's more realistic, because again, 97% of the time, it ain't going to play out the way you see it in your head. So evaluate the accuracy of it, the validity of it, and replace it. And that's number 3. And the fourth thing is, which I realized I only said 3, but number 4 is something that we already know, but just may not think about it enough, which is your lifestyle. A few things that can help you with anxiety: regular exercise. Science shows this really helps moving your body. If you exercise for just 30 minutes a day, your anxiety levels will start to go down. Another thing that helps with anxiety that I'm actually just now learning is eating healthy, nutrition, eating healthy, non-processed foods, trying to eat the least amount of processed foods as you can. Another thing that helps is lowering your caffeine intake. And that is a hard pill to swallow for me, but caffeine does spike your cortisol levels. So I say it's worth a shot. Give it a try. If you've been feeling really anxious lately, try cutting back coffee for a week. Another thing that helps is drinking enough water. Low water intake, believe it or not, can increase your anxiety levels. And of course, drinking less alcohol, right? All the fun stuff. But no, really, alcohol can cause your anxiety levels to increase. So try and prioritize some of your life habits: getting good sleep, less alcohol, eating healthy, exercise, and all these things help. And another important one is to limit your screen time. Looking at your phone can really start to stress you out. You can feel way more anxious if you look at your phone all day. And again, science shows this. The Center for Anxiety Disorder says, and I quote, "High users of screens were significantly more likely to have been diagnosed with anxiety or depression." So figure out how to limit that. It's literally contributing to your anxiety. So that's it. These are all based in science. First thing, work on your breathing. Take deep breaths. 5 in, 10 out. Step 2 and 3, cognitive restructuring. A combination of identifying that negative thought, questioning the accuracy and the rationale of it, and also replacing that negative thought with a more positive thought. And the fourth one is your lifestyle and habits. Are you contributing to your anxiety from your own doing? The caffeine, the alcohol, the lack of sleep, lack of exercise, lack of a healthy nutritional diet. And that's it. Straightforward and to the point. So that's what I got for you today. If you like this episode, please share it with somebody that can benefit from this, somebody who is a friend or a family member, somebody who has goals and is trying to improve their lives. So thank you again, and let's get it in.